All right, welcome to another episode of the Aspiring VC podcast. Your host, Matt Snow with Matt's Ventures here. I have the pleasure of talking to Derren at Veteran Ventures, but before we start the episode, let's talk about coffee, Dunkin' or Starbucks. What is your choice?
Man, well, Dunkin's closer in location, but I probably prefer Starbucks. So, Dunkin' is the it. I have more Dunkin', but I probably prefer Starbucks if that helps straddle the fence real quick on that type of answer.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So let's just give me a 2 minute summary. Tell me about yourself and the firm and the role that you're in.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me, Matt. Appreciate the opportunity. Talk a little bit about Veteran Ventures Capital, our background, and where we're headed. Um, my background is I did 21 years in the Air Force. All of it was in financial management. So I didn't fly the planes, like to say I just paid for them, and had great opportunities to do that. Managed some very large programs in the military. 15 billion in the Pentagon, 12 billion on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. Finished up my time in the White House under the Obama administration, managing the president's communications budget. Met my co-founder there, Mason Rice. He was an Army guy. And then we transitioned to Knoxville, where I helped scale a local business and took it from what was a 7 million valuation at the time to about a 40 million valuation over a period of 3 years, using a lot of military principles. So think of things that the military is good at: structure, organization, leadership, administration, process management. All of those things that are very commonplace for the military are badly needed in small business. And so that's what I found when I implemented them as the chief operating officer of this company. Took them from about 45 individuals to 100, about 450 million assets under management to 1.6 billion, and then again raised some growth equity to help really supercharge them. And during that raising of the fund, where I got back into my financial element, that's where I saw that there was a gap in access to capital. And so, especially in veteran-owned and veteran-led businesses. And so Mason and myself, we decided to get together and try to address that gap. And so much has happened since then. That's about 3 years ago. And Veteran Ventures Capital is now an investment firm and that is focused on investing in veteran-owned and veteran-led businesses. Currently in the midst of fully capitalizing our first fund. And you can say that we invest in, the litmus test is veteran-owned, veteran-led, and the subject matter expertise that we bring to the table is a lot of this defense and national security side of the house and sectors, because that's really where we come out of and where we feel like the best deal flow is for veterans. What the military does well is where we get our best deal flow. Is really the easiest way to talk about it. So yeah, we're fully up and running, broke escrow, got a couple of investments in the portfolio, and trying to scale the fund all the way this year to really be able to bring about 20 to 30 companies in the portfolio over the next couple of years.
Well, you're very modest. I think you've summarized a pretty wild and wildly successful career, and kind of kept it low key. So I think that's awesome. But let's dive into. Can you explain like this market cap? What you saw in like maybe how veteran founded businesses struggle to raise capital, and how you kind of spearheaded this movement to kind of take charge and take leadership and kind of fix the problem yourself.
Yeah, so well, it came from firsthand experience, right? When I was raising that capital of several $1 million for the company I was the COO of, I was just, first I went to all these government programs thinking, oh, there's got to be a program out there for veterans. And there's some great programs the government does do for people that want to start their own business or franchise or things like that. But to address, companies that are, you know, post revenue generating significant traction and trying to scale them to the next level, there's nothing out there, right? And so what we found is that it was a little bit more of a challenge getting access to capital and access to the funding network, which later I found out is the number one reason why veterans can't really scale businesses is they don't have that. They're what's considered to be an underserved demographic in venture capital, 30% less likely to receive venture funding, and it's a very odd statistic because veterans out earn their non-veteran counterparts. So you got this arbitrage where can't get the same level of attention in venture, even though they outperform. So what we see is this arbitrage where we can come in there and bridge that gap, which really means that we come in at a very reasonable valuation, and then take these companies, scale them in a massive way, because we're post revenue, typically around Series A, that kind of thing. We deploy $1 million first round and reserve $5 million for follow on. But we're able to see that the sectors that we're focused in trade at a very high multiple on the public markets, which means that you have less time for a liquidation event, and generating that return, all using the characteristics that really have made our country great. Right, it's the veteran population that has the skill set. The government invests, billions of dollars in the development and leadership traits of our nation's military. There's a white paper on our website that says why veterans make better entrepreneurs, and essentially it takes the characteristics of Fortune 500 leaders, and shows them. I mean, these are the biggest companies in the world, and how those traits are taught from the ground up. Doesn't matter what service, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Doesn't matter if you're officer and enlisted. They all go through these leadership development, technical competence, educational requirements. I mean, the government paid for me to have 3 master's degrees. My co-founder is a PhD in cybersecurity. All of these things come together to form what the government puts so much investment and resources. We get to leverage when they come out. It doesn't matter if you've been in 5 years or 25. You get this training and this skill set that is so crucial to leading small businesses and taking them to that next level. That's where we come in and help scale them, bring them before governmental opportunities, non-dilutive opportunities, all of those things that I'm sure you're very well aware of at Mass, that we're trying to do here at Veteran Ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's clear to me why these founders would outperform. If you can handle the stress of operating in all of these crazy environments, I think you can handle scaling a business, right? So, it makes
Well, yeah. Just to kind of piggyback on that, I mean, you think about what makes a great CEO. Is it an ability to adapt to changing circumstances? The private sector calls pivoting, and and then the problem solving techniques of doing more with less, or the ability to execute the mission no matter what happens. I'm going to take that hill no matter what. And then the work ethic, the integrity, all of these things that come into I just described a CEO, or did I just describe a veteran? Well, I submit to you that I both, right? And so that's just the opportunity that we think is, and statistics tend to show that veterans do make great entrepreneurs, great business case, and they're going to make a good return for our investors.
Absolutely. And, I think I try to make sure listeners understand this. When you're building a fund, you are an entrepreneur, right? You are building a business from the ground up. So how have you thought about that? And also curious, in this kind of DoD and kind of the adjacent community of, the companies that work in that realm, who helped you kind of set this up? How did you go about raising money for this? And who has been kind of helpful, on that side of things?
Yeah, so many great questions. So yes, I often feel, especially, so over the last year, we had like 220 pitches given to us. More than adequate for the fund size that we're at 100 million. And really, what I see sometimes in the beginning is I was no different than the people pitching me. We were both scrapping, trying to raise capital and to make that those first believers, if you will. And so I definitely feel like as a first time fund manager, emerging manager category, that is didn't do very well last year in COVID, whereas other sectors of venture did. But to answer your question, when I decided this is something that I wanted to pursue, I immediately looked into the local community of people that have done that. I got involved in a couple of angel investment groups, found the venture capitalists that were in here in Knoxville, Tennessee, some great ones. One of the higher performing ones, Innova, is based in Memphis, but the fund manager lives in Knoxville, and so he kind of took me under his wing. He was a veteran, is a veteran, Ken Woody. Anyway, so these people took me under their wing for about a year, showing me all the tricks of the trade, valuations, fundraising, all the different things that they did over their course of decades, and really have shown us and how to scale, how to automate the as much as possible the vetting process so that you can take either 7 or 70 pitches a week. That's what we have come across with. So yeah, I've had some really great mentors. Surprisingly, Knoxville is a wonderful place to start a business, and that even goes for a venture capital firm like ours.
That's awesome. And how do you view some of the players in this space already? I'm thinking of Ath Ventures, I'm thinking of Harpoon, Ridgeline, maybe even like a Lux Capital. And I think obviously they're probably, working on this segment a little bit, but they don't have the pure focus on veteran founded businesses that you guys have.
Yeah, so great network, okay, of people that believe in the veteran, believe in that methodology. Like you said, the ones that you mentioned aren't solely focused on that, but they do have a big play in the military scene. There's probably less than 10 funds in the nation that are doing something pretty similar to what we're doing. None of them are exactly in the same way, but it is a close knit community. And once I don't think that we're going to help each other fundraise. Don't get me wrong, but I do think once the all the funds are fully capitalized, the syndication and the deal flow sharing that could happen really helps lift all the rising tide mentality. So I think we have a great group. I know all of the other ones that are doing those things, and again, they some of them have been extremely helpful in showing Veteran Ventures some of the tools and the tips that they've done, because again, we're trying to do something bigger than ourselves, right? It's something that I did when I served in the military. Loved um, loved my time there. Tough decision to get out when I did, and I'm really interested in trying to ensure the success of veterans who have again done a fantastic job serving our country, taking those same principles and wanting to put them in the private sector and just accelerate those businesses. That's what we want to be the enabler of doing. And so that's kind of yeah, definitely agree that there's a growing ecosystem of fund managers that are trying to help do the same thing that we're doing solely.
And whether it's in the current portfolio or even if it was kind of before the inception of the firm, but really an inspiration. Is there like a specific veteran founded startup that just stands out to you as like the prime story of the potential here at Market Gap?
Well, yeah. So when I started to really peel the onion back on what I was getting into, what you saw, I kind of talk about the pre 9/11 veteran and the post 9/11 veteran. So the pre 9/11 veteran, you think about some of the biggest companies in the world. You think about FedEx, you think about Walmart, Enterprise, Nike, GoDaddy, U-Haul. All of these companies were started by veterans. And so these are the people that, served our country in the midst of war, came back, upwards of like 50 to 60% of them started their own businesses and really put the US on a multi-decade dominance on the world stage in an economic sense. Okay. Um, Now that was an incredible time of growth for our country. And again, a lot of that was on the back of the people that had already defended it. Now, post 9/11, think about that veteran. Those folks are much more technologically advanced. I mean, think about satellite imaging, biotech, drones, the list goes on, right? And the technical skills are great, but the educational requirements, like I said, the government does a great job in making sure that the services are highly educated. And so these people come out of the military with this incredible set of skills, yet the rate at which they're starting businesses is far less than what it was back in the pre 9/11 days. And the number one limiting factor to that is access to capital. And so again, we have the innovation, we have the technical competence, and we have the desire. We just have to give them the same playing field that exists out there for other business owners today. And so that's kind of so I think of we want to make the next FedEx, we want to make the next Nike or the next Walmart, and I think that those people like Fred Smith from Federal Express knows what we're doing here, and is excited about the opportunity. So those are the things that we're trying to generate is the next generation of folks that are going to change the world. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You know, something that I kind of had in mind there was when I was on vacation once, I met a veteran who actually was an entrepreneur, and we're sitting there watching a football game, and you know, he ends up telling me about this business that he built. And I was like, all right, so what happened? And he was in Iraq, and you know, the IEDs were a huge problem with the Humvees, and they had an engineer on the team, and they said, well, why are these IEDs going off? And it just turns out it was a simple, you know, kind of tool that was detecting heat. That's all it was doing. And they were like, well, what if we just put a rod on the front of the Hummer and have a heat box on it? And so they jerry rigged this thing. The engineers built this extendable arm. They put just a massive heat box on the front of it, and they started driving all their Hummers with it. And it saved their lives multiple times. You know, explosion goes off, but it goes off, you know, 10 yards in front of them, however long the pole is, and it didn't kill them. And the second that they, you know, got out and, you know, became veteran status, they actually incorporated, set up as a small business, which, you know, has had additional benefits too, also being a, you know, veteran run small business category. And, you know, he was able to sell this business for, you know, something on the order of 10 to $40 million. And it was life changing for him. But most importantly, it was life saving for the troops. And it got incorporated into a lot of the vehicles, from what I understand. And that story, when I met that guy, I was just blown away with what they had done and what they created.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible the innovation that, and like you said, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan and saw that material. And again, this is you touched upon something that we believe is a huge value add for veteran businesses. Some of them, not all of them, but a large portion of the businesses that pitch us have that certified service disabled veteran owned status, which allows them to compete in the other you know, the disadvantaged categories, thinking about you know, minority, women, Native American, all of those different types of groups that get to compete for what is essentially set aside money from at the federal and most state levels, to the tune of DoD alone is 60 billion a year. So you again have these types of opportunities that a lot of companies don't, or a lot of firms don't understand in the same way that folks that have actually lived it. And you know, I handled procurement as well as financial channels. So another value add of what we do at Veteran Ventures is to bring those companies that have this, you know, post revenue commercial opportunity, to bring that dual use technology into the governmental channels, you know, trying to navigate the complex world of contracting or non-dilutive sources like SBIR grants. We know how to do that. We did it while we were active duty, and now we're able to help other companies do it as well. So it's an opportunity, like you said, to see something so small but so innovative that changes the game, saves lives, but also helps that veteran succeed in the private sector too.
And it's just funny to think about how all you just need to do is just lift these people up, right? Just give them a little bit of capital, and they're fully capable of building these businesses. Frankly, probably better than their counterparts that don't have the military background. So
yeah, that's it. It's true. The just the structure and the, you know, the order and process management. You know, a lot of things that we did again when I first transitioned out may not have had the inner workings of being in that, you know, financial side of the house for in the same manner for 20 years like some of the other people out there, but we were able to grow and scale faster just because we had the blocking and tackling of how to structure things and be successful in that area. So totally agree.
And, you know, on the podcast, I do focus a lot to kind of listeners that are trying to break into the industry. And I think what would be interesting to hear from you is, you know, I think in addition to the funding, there's also kind of a struggle of veterans to kind of get into full-time venture roles. And I know that the DoD is kind of helping with certain programs here, kind of fellowships and internships, but curious what you think on, you know, veterans that want to break into this venture, kind of opaque venture investing world.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. The government, at least, you mentioned AF Ventures or AFWorks and some of the different initiatives that the Defense Department is trying to do. That's really the key of getting exposure prior to then and getting your foot into the door, not going cold turkey like I did, and the very abnormal way. So the idea of starting in, getting involved in angel investing, and trying to build some level of a track record before really trying to accelerate up the ranks. I think that's pretty key, and I think the programs that they're starting to put in place, they're recognizing the need for innovation to come into the Defense Department in particular, and they know the way to do that is to get the Defense Department to understand what happens in these categories in the venture world, and alternative capital in general, whether that's private equity, whether that's venture, anything like that. That is pretty key exposure as early as you can to give you a working level. Because let's face it, that's another problem that some of the veterans had is in transition. Sometimes they couldn't what one of the, another still another value add for us is we understand the lingo, we understand what they're trying to say, and how they can present the mission to us, the mission of whatever business they're doing. That can be a stumbling block for some traditional firms that don't necessarily understand the methodology and the culture. So that is something that they have to kind of work on. So I would say, again, more time in some of the programs that the government's putting together, some of the larger venture funds that have these intern type of programs, great opportunities. And but we're not going to have, for the majority of us, we're not going to have that traditional, go get your Harvard MBA and then start your own firm after that. That's not necessarily the winning formula. It's still very applicable, but we've done a little bit more in serving our country and building up the I guess the attributes, like you said earlier, when you have bullets coming at you on the battlefield, coming into the boardroom, you really understand a level of pressure and poise under pressure that can benefit you in any endeavor. Just venture capital being one of them.
And there's a unique question that I would love your take on. I was talking to someone at one of the leading early stage A&D investing groups about this. Is you look at the success of App Ventures, AppWorks, DARPA, InQtel, all these groups, and I'm curious, and even with what you're building, do you think we'll get to a point where DoD will actually be incubating fund managers? I'm just kind of surprised that this App Ventures, AppWorks model isn't being more actively funded and replicated by other agencies and groups.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I think so let uh I have a vision of what I think could happen in this space. Okay, so I'll save that here in a second. The what's going to happen though is and again, we have several general officers on our team who stay abreast of the DoD budget tendencies, where they're looking at 7 years out and then 5 years out, so we can try and anticipate where they're going to be spending money and where we should concentrate our deal flow efforts at. So that's a key issue, is to staying abreast of what's going on. And what we'll find is that there's probably going to be more of a shift to war fighting necessity of buying the equipment and the tools to win the battle on the battlefield. And I think what's going to happen is these programs that are really good opportunities to help long term, they tend to get squashed in periods of budgetary constraints, saying right now I got to care about defending the people that are on the ground right now. So some of these great programs that are acknowledged being successful, sometimes they'll get squeezed anyway, just due to the fact that we have an economic cycle that has periods of a contraction when it comes to defense spending, right? And so back up now to what I believe and what we're trying to accomplish here is I want to see military service become the gateway to entrepreneurship. I want this fund and three more right behind it to be so successful that that young entrepreneurially minded people say, man, I need to go serve in the military because that's the gateway to making it in the private sector. If we can demonstrate successful, I shouldn't say if, when we demonstrate successful exits time and time again, people are going to realize that, man, if I really want to get ahead in life, I need to go serve my country. Then we all win, don't we? We have a strong defense. We have an opportunity for innovation within the ranks. And then we also have these people that are coming out full of ideas, full of skill sets that have been developed and ready to really help bring those same principles into the private sector.
So then I guess it's just a matter of how do you get family offices and fund of funds and high net worth individuals to kind of see that vision. Obviously, some of the groups you talk to, I have to imagine, are already kind of primed to be along with this vision. But maybe for the ones that are kind of on the edge or ready to dip their toes into this space, how do you kind of get them to see that?
Boy, if you can figure that out, I'll ask you to join our board. No, so yeah, we're the typical problems that you would have as a first time fund, or challenges, I should say, to overcome is the first time fund mentality, emerging managers that a lot of folks won't do, um, and so that's where we are looking for the high net worth and the family offices. It would be great if there were, a dozen veteran billionaires out there. Okay, that's not why we served. You just don't. There are some. Don't get me wrong, but there's not many. And so we have to go to those family offices and high net worth that either made a lot of their fortune through defense related industries, or that just have an affinity for the military, right? And believe in the cause. So that's been a slog. It's been challenging. It's definitely going to happen. So we know that our motto is rewarding sacrificial leadership, right? And that has a dual use to it. We believe that obviously it's for the veterans who are sacrificing so much on in their service to our nation, but it's also for the LPs and the investors, right? They're sacrificing a little bit of short-term issue and deploying that capital over to us for that long-term gain of that what we call a return you could be proud of when you're doing it on those veteran businesses that we believe are going to outperform the industry norms, because that's the nature of what you get when you get a high performing veteran. But it's all part of this overall desire to see a strong showing in the military entrepreneurship arena. We call them entrepreneurs.
Well, if you're if you're an LP watching this, I think you should reach out directly. But we'll link up on that offline. I think there's a lot of good groups that you guys should get in front of if they aren't already involved. But if now's a good time, I think we can go into some of these rapid fire questions if you're ready.
Absolutely, fire away.
Awesome. First one: who's been one of your most important mentors, and if there's something you remember that they said or did that still kind of stands in mind today?
Well, for military wise, it would be a colonel that was my commander when I was managing a small budget flight over in the UK. So Colonel Paul Huff, if you're listening, he was instrumental in really showing me the best way to lead is to get out there, be with them, and also to ask a lot of questions. He used to ask so many questions that forced me to answer some things and learn stuff at a very rapid pace. And then in turn, when I came back to him with the answers, it was always followed by more questions. And so really appreciate that. And it's always given me that ability to think things through by questions. That's certainly one in the military. In the private sector, there's so many. I'm not sure where to start, but there's a gentleman here who got me involved in angel investing. Eric Dobson, he's on our board as well. He's the CEO of an angel syndicate across the southern states, and again, just really helped take me under his wing, showed me how to manage what he does, and allowed me to be the president of the angel group here. And so I really have appreciated and attribute a lot of the growth over the last couple of years to his mentorship. And it's exciting because I can see people that I get to touch in the same way that these gentlemen touch me. I'd like to continue to spread that out. So hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. And I think for anyone listening, paying it forward in this space is a big thing, whether you're on the entrepreneur side of the table or the investor side. So, people get to where they got from a lot of help. And so paying it forward to others is critical. Outside of Veteran Ventures, what's another either venture firm or a specific investor that, you really admire or like their strategy?
I asked questions from that gentleman I told you about earlier, Ken Woody of Innova Investments. And it's one of the best performing in the country as well. So I'll definitely reach out to him if I have a quick question, and it can be a text, right? Just something like that where I love getting as many people's perspectives as possible. I don't like to make decisions in a vacuum, and so I love the investment peers that I'm with in the local area. I like the investment committee that is a part of Veteran Ventures. We really gel well, and it's a mixture of corporate VC, angel investing, and just traditional VCs. It's just so I guess I always continually move forward and try to just seek advice from as many people as I possibly can. And Matt, I'm adding you to the list because you've been there and done that in so many different ways.
Well, I'm happy to be there. Um, you know, when you look at startups, obviously, you need to see the veteran founded business, but in terms of business characteristics or market sectors, what gets you really excited about potentially investing in a company?
Yeah, so I love what I do. I love getting the pitches and kind of scrolling through the value adds and figuring out. Part of our process is, coming to the website, filling out on our funding portal the application that kind of shoots out automatically to our investment committee. But we get to read it all, we get to see it all, and then we have that virtual pitch, right? So what I like to see is the story, right? So it has to be a good business case. So we are looking at the pro formas. I'm looking to see, that, 10x mentality, 10x return mentality. But really, what I want to see is how have they developed the story? And it almost always involves what they did in the military and how that is turned into a passion. The one of our questions is, what is your why? Simon Sinek's start with why. And so to see that, to see the passion there, and then to kind of see that, okay, this has real potential to change the game. Well, that's important, and that's really what drives me to kind of say, okay, I can't wait to see these guys, and so or folks, guys or girls. And so yeah, it's been it's a great I love seeing innovation. We again, we're not like we're like a lot of VCs, and that you get that 1 to 3% investment rate. So we know that the majority of them are not going to make the cut, but we still like to help them out. I want to see every veteran business be successful, whether we invest in them or not. So if it's connecting them with another group of investors, with more often than not, that's an angel. They're not ready for VC, and so we help get them exposed to those folks so they can get them ready to come back to us.
Well, and I'll kind of throw this question back at you. A special question for you is, when you were growing up, when did you know you wanted to get into the military, and what was there like a specific moment or what kind of drew you to?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's not going to be a very well thought out answer because honestly, that was back in 1993. I was a junior in college. I had no desire to be in the military. I was in a military school, so the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, military college, and again, it was a spur of the moment decision that basically said, "Oh, the job market's pretty bad. We were just getting into a recession." And I got this letter in the mail from our OTC saying you can still be an officer, and I was like, "Oh, sure, why not?" And so I signed on the dotted line, and then I said, I'm only going to do 4 years. I'm going to get them to pay for my master's degree, and then I'm getting out. And that's exactly what the plan was. So I went overseas, and when I came back, I was stationed in Tampa, Florida, and I was getting ready to get out. Started floating the resumes in the community, and then I got deployed to Kuwait, and actually was flying back from that deployment on 9/11. And so when the attack happened on the Twin Towers, um, I was in midair coming back from Kuwait, and our flight got, of course, they locked down the skies, and so I had to be diverted to Portugal to a base over there for an extra week. So that changed my mentality. So I came back with a different mindset. I assumed that we were going to get out after 4 years, and then I said, I think I'm called to stay in and make a difference in a different way. And so 9/11 is what did it for me, and I never will forget it. But that's essentially why I stayed in for 21 years, and why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's just for the passion of helping veterans that have continued to give so much for our country.
A close friend of mine who's actually a blockchain VC in Boston. He also flew around the same time, fighter jet pilot, and he still talks about it and still kind of reflects on that period. And another amazing story is actually the founder of NEA, Newhall, Chuck Newhall. He actually did reconnaissance on Hamburg Hill in Vietnam,
Wow.
and he survived, and he struggled, and he talks about this in his book, but he struggled very seriously with PTSD, and he overcame that. One of the most iconic venture firms in the history of the asset class.
Hmm.
His son Ashton has built the largest and most successful venture fund of funds. So I think it just goes back to kind of that. It's the same thing with the founders of the operating companies, with the founders of the funds. I think it's just kind of amazing stories, and yeah, I guess that's what this all goes back to is origin stories and why you do things and what your motivation is. And I think when it's not just about money, that's probably where you get the best results. So
Absolutely, totally agree. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but we're really excited about the opportunities that are out there, both for the veterans, but also for the investors. The investors that come in the ground floor, we're building something great, and it's going to be, I believe, really disruptive in the financial sector. We're going to see alternative capital maybe drop the term alternative and become more mainstream, and I think you're going to see veterans leading the way, and we're excited to be a part of it.
absolutely. Well, this is a much more laid back question that I stole this one from Tim Ferriss, but I definitely love his just love this question. And it's, what's a purchase of like $100 or a couple $100 that is like an outsized impact of utility or happiness for you? And I've had people talk about AirPods and workout equipment and like musical instruments, just like whatever.
Hmm. Well, what I'm finding is these is little small things. So for me, it would probably be the ability to do something with my family. So I have 5 kids. So we drop $100 if we ever wanted to go out to eat, right? So even if it's like fast food. So it's a I do like having the opportunities to take some time and to have like you even said, these earbuds that I'm wearing right now would satisfy that. But so it's just anything. When I look around the room and around the house, I would probably say that being able to spend a little bit of money, whether that's going and getting the food with the family, and seeing a little bit of smiles on the face for the kids when they get a happy meal or something like that. It's the little things, right? It's just not. I can't think of anything outright that would be, outside of like what you said. It would. I never really thought about the earbuds, but yeah, something to do with family, something whether it's, uh, you know, um, buying a remote controlled airplane that I could take out to the park with the kids and have some fun with that, right? That would be great.
Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I really appreciate the time given. I know how much inbound I think you guys have right now. But please promote yourself. Where can people find you online, and what's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so the website is really easy, veteranventures.us. Okay, so We have .dc as well, but I prefer .us because of who we are and what we're trying to do. That's where you'll find our funding portal. That's where you'll find contact information, all of those things. You'll find me on LinkedIn as well. And those are our main media outlets. And happy to talk to anyone, whether you're a veteran looking to grow and scale a business. And it doesn't really matter what industry where we have subject matter expertise. Doesn't necessarily mean we won't listen to anybody. I'm especially excited if there are some high net worths and family offices that want to get plugged in on what we're doing here in Veteran Ventures. We think it's something that's truly differentiated and unique, and I think it's going to really be the forefront of a lot of great things to come. So happy to talk further with anyone.
Awesome. Well, Derren, again, I really appreciate the time. I'm super excited for what you're building. I hope that we end up being in a syndicate, at some point. And we'll do this again sometime soon.
Great. Thank you so much again, Matt. I appreciate what y'all guys are doing out there in terms of spreading the message. And look forward to seeing to how we can integrate and help each other out now and in the future.
Looking to innovate, invent, and disrupt? We're your partner to fuel your growth. Contact us to learn more.